I talked briefly last week about the fact that, let's see if I just flip these. If I do Command Y to look at outline mode, every shape is made up of a path. That's what makes it a vector object. It's 4 points connected by lines. Even if it's a circle, it's 4 points connected by curved Bezier lines. And that's the actual form of the shape. But by default, by itself, we can't actually see that on the screen unless we have a fill or a stroke applied to it. And those are appearances. So we're always working on the path. But in order to see it and to see its visual representation, it's the fill and the stroke that we're working with there. And those are just appearances. It actually makes a difference later on when we get into some of the other tools. There's an appearance tool, actually, I've got it up here, but where I can keep a very primitive shape like this, and I can start layering multiple appearances on top of that and create something that looks totally different. So that's, keep in mind that every shape is a path. Even multiple paths, in the case of a compound path. But the fills and the strokes are the appearance that give it form, all right? So if I need an outline of this shape, my general practice, what I generally try to get people to do is, I've got a square, if I go to outline mode, if I just copy and paste that in front, and then increase the size of it a little bit, and then select the both of them. I can use my Pathfinder tool. What did I not do? Oh, I see. Select both of my paths, and I can subtract that front one. And now I've got an outline of this square. This is a filled path, a compound path, to be precise, all right? But this and window panel, grab my stroke panel. Over here, open up my strokes, show my options. Those look pretty much the same, right? I mean, slightly different size, but the effect is the same. And it's, common to create an outline shape this way. People just sort of tend to go to applying a stroke to it. But again, everything we do, we want to have as a filled path. So even if we're going to create our stroked path this way, we've got to work with it. We've got to convert it. And I want to do 2 versions here. So this first one has a white fill and a black stroke on it. This second one I want to remove the fill from. So the second one is just the black stroke and the white fill, and no fill. And if I want to convert this to a filled path or filled shape, the way we're supposed to, then I'm just going to select both of these and do them at the same time, because I'm going to get slightly different results. Select those, and I'm going to go to the object panel, and I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm going to use either expand, or I'm going to go down to the path option here and outline my strokes. One of the 2, all right? They do the same basic thing. I have the habit, I always forget expand is here. I have that. Usually I'll go down here and do outline stroke. But when I do, now if I take a look at this in outline mode, I've got two different things, right? Why do you suppose this one looks different from this one? Anybody have any ideas? Remember, they weren't identical shapes. They visually looked like identical shapes, but they weren't.
The one on the right is a filled shape.
Is what?
It's a filled shape.
The one on the right? No, the one on the left was the filled shape.
Okay.
So, but your instinct there is absolutely right. So here's what I've got. If I go back to outline mode, if I drag this right here off the edge of the artboard, this is exactly what I want. There's no fill in this. But if I select this and drag it off the artboard, I've still got the white fill on it. That's because when I outline that stroke and I've applied the white fill to it, Illustrator needs to do something with that white fill. So what does it do? It actually creates not only our compound path of the black stroke, but it also creates a shape for the white fill. And by default, if we take a look at our layer panel here, it's actually a group of objects. It's grouped them together. I'll drag this off a little bit. So if I go to my object panel and I go down here to ungroup, now I can select these individually and get two different items. Does that make sense? You understand? This will matter later, which is kind of why I'm explaining it now. What will probably really come to matter is later on when we do our image translation assignment, because you're creating your own images for those, and it's a little less cut and dried as to what you do. So, but just know that that's what happens when I go and take a stroke and I outline it, is that if I've got a fill on the shape, Illustrator's also going to create another shape for that fill. And I just need to decide what to do with it. If I still want to keep it for something, I can do that, or I can delete it. But if I stroke that path and I don't give it a fill at all, it'll give me the shape that I want. All right? And I want to show you in a moment. I'm going to put this a little more into practice here in just a minute. But before I do that, take these, put them over here with this, and I'm going to draw another rectangle in the middle of my artboard. And I am going to flip so that I've got the black stroke on it. I'm going to go to my stroke panel, and I'm going to increase this to 12 points. All right? So, and I'm going to tear my stroke panel off here, just so I can see it. So I've got it out here. So there's a bunch of different options here on my stroke panel. If, to start with, most of the ones that are going to matter for what we're doing here, I think, are these two. The caps only really make a difference on a line segment. So I've got my rectangle, my square here. This first corner, by default, it's mitering the corners, giving us a sharp corner. The middle one allows us to round off that edge a little bit, soften it. I'll do that a lot just because usually when I'm doing an illustration type of thing, I like, very few things in life have true sharp corners on them. So sometimes I'll use that if I'm building out with a stroke. But I can round corners that way, or I can actually bevel them with this setting right here. So we've got those three settings. When I've got the miter corner selected, which by default it is, this limit value will help ensure that we get a sharp corner. Sometimes you'll draw a shape with a pen tool or manipulate it into a way that this corner will get kind of cut off a little bit, and you can get it back to a point by increasing that miter limit, that 10. I'm telling you now, but it's probably something you may or may not remember. If and when it comes up, we'll look at that again. But that's the first thing. The second thing is the align stroke. And then by default, you see that our path is right in the middle of the stroke. And we can change that. We can put our stroke to the inside of our path, or we can put it to the outside of our path. One of the two. So we've got those options. Kind of keep that in mind. I'm actually going to use that here in a minute. So, I can make a choice as to how that path behaves based on my selection here. If I create a silhouette of an object that I want an outline on, I might actually choose, if I trace the silhouette of it, I might actually choose the inside stroke or the outside stroke, one of the two, probably. Depends upon what I'm looking for. All right? And then right below that, I can give things dashed lines. And I can increase the dash. If I've only got a single value in dash, then the gap is going to match that. But if I change the gap, say to 24, it's going to give me a wider gap on that dashed line. Or I could drop my dash back to 12 and make the gap down to 12, make the dash 24, and get a longer dash. If I were to choose a cap that's rounded, I can round those off. And if I make my dash 0, I can get a dotted line. Remember, it's a 12-point stroke, so they're all butting up against each other. So I got a 12-point stroke. If I make the gap, 36, divisor of 12, that'll help give me a gap as well. So I can get different results out of a gap on a stroke. And if what I'm looking for is, this is getting kind of funky here at the corner where it starts and ends, I can always stick my cursor in the middle there and just tap my up arrow key and my down arrow key until I get something closer to what I'm looking for. I don't know. I think the physical size of my cube is actually affecting how the corners actually work. This is where numbers sometimes make a difference. So if my cube was 120 pixels square, I would probably get something a little more like what I want. What do we got now? Let's do this. 120, let's do 240. There we go. And, this is a good way to get shapes like this. I mean, rounded dots or dashes, doesn't really matter. Because whenever I'm done, if I go look at outline mode, it's still just a cube, right? It's because a stroke is simply an appearance. But I can go to my object menu and expand, or outline stroke, one of the two. I want to expand both the fill and the stroke. And now I've got filled shapes. Did everybody follow? Yeah, no?
I got lost in that last part of it.
So that the part where I converted to shapes, into the shapes? All right. All I did was with the object selected, I went to my object panel, I went to expand. Like I said, expand and outline stroke do the same thing. Adobe adds new features in, but they leave the old ones in. Outline stroke was the original way to do this. This expand is more flexible. Say okay. All right?
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Yeah.
Not related to the project, but I just wanted to make sure you got my email.
Say it again.
I wanted to make sure you got my email this month.
I don't know if I did, but I'll take a look in a little bit.
Okay.
I did. When did you send it?
Like 9:44.
Oh, yeah. I'll take a look. I didn't see it, but not yet. My email's not open at the moment, so. All right. So, but that's our stroke panel, and how we can use that to create filled shapes as well. So, the reason I mention that is, well, A, getting used to how the how strokes work is good. It can help simplify things. Let me do one other thing here real quick before I go. I want to grab my line segment tool. Actually, let me switch back to my workspace that I should be working in. I'll go to my, let's reset my basic workspace. There we go. All right. And go back to my window menu and grab my stroke panel again. All right. So I'm going to grab my line segment tool and just draw out a line and make it 20 points. The last item on this stroke panel, and if you have your stroke panel just shows this kind of information, go to that little hamburger menu and you click show options and that shows everything. But with this line segment, if I cap it with rounded ends, I can soften up the ends of that stroke. By default, it kind of the stroke butts to the end of the path. This will round it off and extend it a little bit. And this one here will extend it past the end of the path. So, and the only things really left down here are the arrowheads. And if I take a look at, if I grab an arrowhead here, it'll apply an arrowhead. But again, if I do Command Y, go back to outline mode, again, that's just an appearance as well. And I can scale the size of that by scaling it down with my scale. Select a different arrow if I wanted to. But the first one is going to place it at the path start, where it starts. So whenever I drew this path, I clicked on this side and I drew it across to the right. This one will add it to the left. Based upon the direction my path is going. If I apply an arrow to one end, but that's not the end I want it to be on, I can very easily go right out here to the side. You see this little pair of arrows? If I click on that, that will reverse the direction of my path. So all paths have a direction based upon where you start drawing it and where you end drawing it. That's the easiest way to flip the ends of the arrowheads, but if you want to change just the alignment of the path itself, it's actually this one down here. All right. And we can also change the profile of the path if we want. There's some presets, but there's another tool that'll do this part for us. Good so far? Okay. Speak up if not, but so we'll do that. So with a simple line segment, kind of lots of things we can do with that. And if I want this to be a shape, this is the shape that I want. All I need to do is select that, go back to my object menu to expand appearance. Notice how that changed a little bit. Now it's expand appearance. So it's going to expand these appearances that I applied. And convert them into shapes. But it did create the arrowheads separate from the shape itself, from the stroke itself. And all I really need to do is go to my pathfinders and unite those to make them one object. And the last thing now with strokes. I'm going to draw, I'm going to draw a straight line. And I'm just going to go to my stroke panel, make it 2 points, zoom in on it. So there's a tool here on my toolbar. If I go down, I want to skip over the eraser and some of these others. See this one right here that looks like a little curly, little squiggly line where my cursor is moving? On my tool panel, it's right below the eyedropper tool. This is a width tool. And what I can do with my width tool is, if I select that, come over here to my stroke, click on it and drag, I can change the profile of that stroke. And I can do that all along. If I grab the end, I can pull that out and make kind of interesting profiles on strokes. If I come over here to my stroke panel and put rounded ends on it, a variety of different things I can do with that. So going back to my primitive shapes, if I draw an ellipse and give it a 3-point stroke, if I'm creating an outline of an object, I can use this width tool right here to, if I click, to heavy up one end of it or another. And I can either, do funky things all the way around it. Kind of looks like a coffee stain maybe. I don't know. But one of the things that I find useful with this particular tool is that very frequently whenever we create vector artwork, if I go all the way back, we'll put a stroke on something and that's nice and clean all the way around. But maybe we want something that's more organic, Maybe we want something that somehow gives the sense that this is more of a volume and there's a shadow edge to the other underside. I can use that for that. Or I can quite simply use it to create some variance in this just to sort of, you know, give my artwork just a little different quality. And that's one of those things that as I've, you know, with illustrators, I have matured with using Illustrator, and as I got better with it, these are things I really kind of started looking at when I was creating artwork with it. Some things need to be nice, clean, and sharp, you know, and that's all good. But sometimes the things you create should have a little more of an organic feel to them, a little more of an imperfect feel. This is a good way of doing that. So that's the width tool, which really for my money, I should probably position up here closer to my other tools because I use it a lot. But width tool is nice because it can affect that stroke. It's just an appearance thing. My path hasn't changed, you know? But if I go and expand that now, I get that filled shape. Any questions so far? No? All right. The reason I show you that is, you know, everybody, I mean, I show you ways to do things, but at the end of the day, everybody kind of reverts to a way that feels more comfortable to them. And there's ways to make all these things work, you know? So, but that's a very good use of that, that width tool. So the example that I had here, these are for a project I'm waiting to hear back on. But I had variations that I had done on a logo that I had designed, and I did sketches of this, but I had sketches sitting to the side of me. I didn't scan them in and I didn't put them in. So when I was building this, I did it kind of freeform. The brief on this was basically it's a 15-year anniversary for a construction company, and they really wanted the year 15 to look like it's made out of different materials, constructed, windows, doors, that kind of thing. So that's one of the concepts that I came up with whenever I did this. But if I take a look at this, this is a complete antithesis of everything that I've been hammering about. It's got a lot of strokes and a lot of paths. A lot of them are, I mean, you know, if I select this object right here and ungroup it, this bar is actually a stroked path with a fill on it. If this is the logo they go with, I've got to convert this artwork, you know. I did this kind of freeform. I did it this way just to quickly get concepts done and not spend a lot of time on finished artwork because I don't even know if they'll like this. So why spend, you know, an inordinate amount of time trying to make this perfectly printable artwork? So this is the way I build it, you know. But if they choose this, I've got to go back and this is the logo they chose, so I'm going to have to take this piece of artwork and convert it to filled paths because it's only going to be a one-color piece of artwork, and they're probably not going to use it black. It's going to be blue. It's probably going to be white. You know, there's probably going to be a white version on a blue background. Some of those kinds of things. If it's going to be multiple colors, I'm going to have to know that because I'm going to have to make some decisions. But that's the base piece of artwork. And I always, whenever I just create artwork like this, I always do it in black first because when I go and create my final piece of artwork, then I can convert that to any color I need to convert it to really easily. But it's very difficult. If I create this as a 4-color piece of artwork, and then I need to create a black and white version of it, that becomes pretty hard a lot of times. So I'll always create a black and white piece of artwork first. But within this, even this metal panel with the rivets in it, if I ungroup all of this, ungroup these, group that. What did I do? Oh, I already outlined those. even these, whenever I first built them, were just stroked. It was a circle with a stroke on it with a white fill. So I am going to have to convert this probably. If it's not this one, there were other logo designs. This wasn't the only one, but I played around positioning of their logo a little bit. But I'm going to have to convert this. And the process I just showed you with expanding the stroke paths is how I'm going to go about it, is how I'm going to need to go about it. So, you know, if I'm going to convert just this, create another artboard here. I'm gonna grab all this, copy it, just bring it over here. You know, I'm gonna grab these ends as they are and expand those. And ungroup them. But then let's see what happens if I take, all right. So if I take the white panel out of there, I've got some overlapping stuff, but I can fix some of that up. You know, goes back. This shadow right here, or this edge, was simply a shape, so I can unite it into this one. The same thing goes for down here. I can take this shape and my black filled stroke, or my black filled compound path here, unite those. And then if I delete, you know, this white panel, I can just sort of pull this down and this up. Which actually doing it that way affected the width of my stroke. So pull that down inside of there. This up inside of here. That's a white fill with a black stroke, so I need to expand that. And now I'll just ungroup that, select that white fill, and select the black objects here that I have left over and just unite those. And I'm back to my filled piece of art. Looks the same, but it's a different construction. I type. I'll create outlines out of that, select that, and I'll make compound paths out of those. So, you know, however I build a piece of artwork, I've still got to convert it one way or another. And, you know, using stroked shapes and paths, I mean, the fills that I had on those, I could have used those probably to help build out this piece of art in one way or another. But, you know, those are the kinds of things I need to do. So, just kind of beware of that aspect. Create the same type of artwork that we've been doing, but I just used a different process to do it, you know? Any questions? That was just more by way of demonstration. Something just to sort of show you, kind of get your brain thinking just a little bit. It's a little more, I hate to say it's more advanced. I don't think it really is. It's just a little more, there's a little more to it. Things you got to think about, you know? And that's really kind of what it boils down to, is thinking about those things. So, and I have similar things I need to do with this entire piece of artwork. This is probably it'll probably take an hour or so to convert all of that, maybe two. I don't know. But, you know, no sense converting something that may not get used. So, kind of a practical application of all the things I just showed you. All right. Any questions before I move on? What time we got? 10:30. So we got an hour left. All right. So did you guys, so one of the things I mentioned before you left class last week was over the long weekend, take a look. There's a couple of videos that I put up on Brightspace about drawing using primitive objects. And for people that have drawn, you know, had art classes and stuff, it's probably old information for you. But if you haven't taken drawing classes and you don't draw all that much, you know, take a look at those videos when it comes to creating, you know, artwork. Those are, because actually I want to springboard off of that just a little bit. And, you know, this is kind of a simple piece of artwork that I did just before class. And I put a can up on Brightspace for you to work with. But everything I just showed you, I'm going to use to build that out. So if you want to try and build that out with me, that's great. Hopefully we can build out just the basic shape of it, not even the entire thing, in 20 minutes to a half an hour, and then you can have the balance of class to work on your assignments. But you shouldn't be working on your assignment. You should be paying attention to what we're doing up here. Hello? Not working on the assignment. Because while you're working on the assignment, if you're not paying attention, you're missing stuff. So in Brightspace, there is a section for in-class material, and under miscellaneous images are a bunch of images, but there is a can here at the bottom. The icon looks a little different because it's a WebP file. But I don't think Brightspace knows what to do with the file type. But download this can image. And what I've done is I started this exactly the same way that you're starting your tracing exercises. I took that image and I placed it in the center of an artboard. And I picked the can because it tracks directly with the videos that I put on Brightspace. One of the examples that they use is a can. And it's going to use simple squares that we put together and do some other stuff with. But all right. So just kind of place it on your artboard. I've got mine all centered up for the way I'm going to do it, but you know. So I'm just going to kind of take a look at this for a moment while while you guys are downloading and setting this up. So if we take a look at this object and we think about the videos that we watched, this particular object can be made up of nothing but cubes. And if I take a look at it, I'm just going to do some real quick kinds of things just to sort of demonstrate. But so I'm going to make a new layer. All right. So really, if I look at this overall, really the center of this can is a rectangle. If I were to draw a rectangle in here, really the middle of this can is just a rectangle. And if I look at the area above here in the neck, I've got one side, two sides, three sides, four sides. Again, it's a rectangle, right? The same thing goes for, it's got this little neck bit here, and then this object that's curving around. I need to suspend kind of what I'm looking at, because I'm just going to do this orthographically. I'm not going to give it the curves. I think that would take too long for us. But, and even down here at the bottom, if I look at this, even though we've got arcs here, if I were to view that as a straight line, because I can always add arcs. Again, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 sides all the way around, right? So I've got a shape that's just 4 objects. And it's also symmetrical, right? It's exactly the same. If I consider this center line, it's exactly the same on the left that it is on the right. It's just the reverse version, correct? So I'm going to consider all these things. I'm only going to create half of this. And then whenever I'm done creating half of it, because it's going to be easiest to manipulate, I'm just going to reflect it and then join it all together. It's going to be the process that I use. So I'm just going to grab my rectangle tool, go to my layer 1 here, my can layer, and I'm going to look at the center line. Like, I'm going to consider where each of these shapes go to on the center line, because it's got dimension to it, so I got to kind of suspend that a little bit. But if I grab my rectangle tool and I just kind of put my first rectangle right on that center line and draw it, down like this. If I go do Command Y, I can see my outline mode. I'm just going to kind of make half of this shape. And then I don't want a blue stroke on it. I want this to be a black fill, so I'm going to fix this. I just did the blue stroke earlier so we could see it real easy. But let's do that. And grab a black color for my swatches. Nope, it's not even black. There we go. All right, so I've drawn my first can, and what I'm going to, or my first cube, and what I'm going to do is create additional cubes for each of these, manipulate them, and then I'm going to unite them all together. So for the way I'm doing this, one of the things that's important about this Unite Pathfinder is that if I'm doing something like this, these objects have to overlap. If there's the slightest gap between them, it's not going to work right. So I'm just going to go to outline mode here, and I'm going to build just the top parts of this. And I think the easiest way to do this is, I could draw each of these shapes individually, but that's one way to do it. But I want to make sure that they overlap. So I'm going to select the original shape that I created, go to my edit menu, copy, and then back to edit. And I'm just going to either paste in front or paste in place. It's up to you. And it's going to put a copy right on top of the original. And then I'm just going to grab this little handlebar here at the very bottom of it and drag it up to create that second cube. And the reason I did it this way is because that's going to ensure that this path, this line, part of the lines, the shape, directly overlaps this one, so that when I unite them, I get one shape. And I only get one point here on the corner. And I'm going to do the same process here for this section. So I'm just going to select this shape, copy it. I'm going to hit Command C on my keyboard. And if I right click, I can select paste in place. And we'll do the same thing. Grab the handlebar at the bottom and just drag it up to complete that shape. And I'm going to go down and do the part for the bottom as well. So I'm going to go back and select my original rectangle, copy it, paste it in place, and I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to grab the top handlebar and drag it down so that all these shapes, all of these overlap. And I should probably go ahead and do the lip as well, because I'm just making a silhouette here, is all I really want to do. So for this lip at the top, just copy, paste it in front, and sort of draw this up. And I'm gonna exaggerate that a little bit. I'm gonna make it a little bit thicker. Good so far? So now if I look at my preview mode, it's got a bunch of black rectangles, but so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to start here, select my direct select tool, which is that white arrow, click on this corner, hold down my shift key and drag it across to where I think it looks like that lives. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select this rectangle and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to drag this across till it kind of matches that profile. And this neck, I can either grab the point, shift select the 2 points, or I can just select the line itself. If I click on just the line, I can drag that over. And I should make sure that, actually what I should probably do is, instead of the line for this one, I gotta make sure those points line up. I should probably just select the points, shift click the points, so when I drag that over, that snaps to the point. And then this one is just a little bit shorter, like that. So now when I look at this in preview mode, it's starting to resemble a can. And when I've done all of this, I should be able to select all of these shapes, go to my Pathfinder panel, and unite them all. And if I look at it in outline mode, or an outline view, Command Y, let's hide my template layer. I have the silhouette of my can. And turn this back on. So now I just kind of want to refine this a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is, remember this bottom part has this little arc in it, right? So my curvature tool will allow me to place a curve into a line segment. So if I go up here to my curvature tool, which is the pen, but it looks like a pen, but it has that little line coming off of it. If I select that, click on this path and just sort of drag it in a little bit, I can apply a little curve to that. And my last thing to it in this form is that I really just need to sort of ease over these edges because I've got sharp points on my shape. I just need to ease over some of these edges. So then I'm just going to do them one at a time. I'm going to select this one on this little shoulder and ease that over. Command Y. This shouldn't be a hard edge, so I'm just going to sort of ease it over a little bit. And the same thing down here at the bottom, these two. I'll just kind of ease that over, and I'll ease that one over. And once I'm done with that, I've got a silhouette of half of my can. All right. And I could probably ease these edges over, but I'm not going to right now. So I've done all of this. The next step, I think, would be that I want to create the entire can silhouette. So what I'm going to do is, with my select tool, select my can, and I want to use, if I go down here to my transform tools, I want to grab my reflect tool. And if I do have my smart guides on. All right. And I'm just going to kind of zoom in here a little bit. So if I hover over either the guide or the edge of my can, one of the two, put the crosshairs right there, hold down on my option key, and then click, it's going to reflect that. And I'm just going to say copy. And then I'm going to turn off my template so I can see what I've got. And if I zoom in on this, it's solid black. So as long as it's solid black, that means that everything overlaps, the edges overlap the way they're supposed to. If, after you did that, you have something like this, or some smaller variation of it, you need to adjust it to make sure that it overlaps the original shape. So if I grab that, I can just kind of pull that over and snap it right onto it. And when I've done that, I'm just going to select both of those and unite those. If I look Command Y, I've got this shape. So when you complete this and you look at it in outline mode like this, if you've got a line going down through the middle of it, it means that whenever you united those two shapes, they weren't overlapping, and you need to fix that. And you can fix it by ungrouping them and adjusting the halves, make them overlap. We're just using the can as a general reference anyway. Go back to outline mode. I've got my silhouette of my can. We good so far? All right. So I'm only going to take this one step further, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to give you the last half-hour class to work on your church exercise. But I did record this, so you can always go back and try it if you want to. But I do want to, I think on Friday, I want to continue with this, because we're going to give it a little bit of volume. But so the one thing I'm going to do that I just want to show real quick before I quit is that I've got my silhouette now. I should probably save this. can art. If I just want an outline silhouette of this, I can do that very easily by just flipping the fill and the stroke here. Select that. I'm going to flip those. And then I'm going to make the stroke on this just a little bit heavier. So I'm going to increase it to like 6 points or something like that. The only problem with that is if we take a look up here at the can, I'm actually I created a silhouette that was fairly accurate, but by applying this stroke, I'm choking that shape down, and it's really obvious up here in this flange, right? So this is where, remember on the stroke panel, I showed you that we can align the stroke to the center, the inside, or the outside. If I align the stroke to the outside, what did I do? Escape. If I align it to the outside, I'm keeping the original shape that I created. And like I said, most things in nature aren't really, even a soda can, if you examine one, if you look at one, they're kind of softer edges. I could still apply this rounded corner to this, and it'll soften that outer edge. So I've just created an outline silhouette of my can. And I could probably leave it like this for a little bit longer, but I think just to finish this off for today, this is still selected. There's no fill on it. I'm just going to go to my object menu and I'm going to expand the appearance of that to get an outlined stroke. So there's the outline of my soda can, which is, like I said, it's kind of parallel to the drawing video. They use the can too to kind of create these shapes, use these same shapes to create a can. So I'm just kind of carrying that through a little bit. Obviously, other ways we can do this as well, but in the spirit of building with primitives, until next week. That's what we do. We'll start looking at stuff next week that maybe this might be simpler for this particular one, but really kind of start, and especially with the church exercise, there's a lot of application in what I did here, not the stroke part, but in looking at that object and breaking it down, looking at that church and breaking down those shapes into how you create them and how you go about constructing it, So I'm just going to save this. Remember that, I'm headed more towards something like this before I'm done. Something that has a little bit of volume to it. But I'm just going to save that for now. All right?